Hi, this is Ritik, your biology subject matter expert from MEMONEET. And in today's video, we will be concentrating about the major topic that is respiration in plants. Like we all human beings also, we respire, right? So we inhale oxygen and release carbon dioxide. In the same way, plants also respire. So just like there are certain mechanism how our blood, they take up the carbon dioxide and they'll carry it and they'll, give it to the cells of where oxygen is required. Then how ATP is synthesized in our body. Then how carbon dioxide is released from our body, so there is a specific mechanism that happens within our body during respiration and all. The same thing, like not the same, but I mean to say the mechanism also happens in plants. So what is it and how the mechanism happens? Everything in detail we are going to study in this video lecture. Okay. So, very question that comes in our mind is, do plants breathe? Like all living organisms, we need energy for carrying out our daily life activities, right? So it could be, what do you say, that absorption, it could be transport, it could be mechanism, like momentum of our daily, and even it could be the reproduction or the breathing. For everything, energy is required. So we eat food for energy. Like we human beings or animals, we do eat food for energy. But how was this energy is been taken from food? Like we have food for energy is clear, but how that food has been converted into energy, okay, how it has been utilized and how the energy has been utilized by our body, and do all food gives the same amount of energy? And the next question that comes is, like, plants, do plants also eat just like us, or where do this plant they get energy from? And the microorganisms for their energy requirement, even whether they do also have food or what. So these are the question that comes in our mind, right? Yeah. All the energy required for the life process is actually obtained by what? Oxidization of some of the macromolecules that is actually called as food. So one thing that we need to remember here is, what is it? Only green plants and the cyanobacterians can prepare their own food by the process which is actually called as photosynthesis, where they actually trap what? Light energy, and then they are going to convert it into a chemical energy. Then they are going to store that in a bonds of carbohydrates. So bonds of carbohydrates, like they'll be stored as glycerol, glucose, then sucrose, as well as starch. So one thing that we must remember, that in green plants, okay, not all in green plants, not all the parts of the green plants will be able to undergo the photosynthesis process. Only the cells which actually contains, what do you say, that the chloroplast, right? So that is the one, wherever the chloroplast is located, only that part is going to do the photosynthesis process or carry out the photosynthesis. Hence, even in the green plants of all organs, the tissue cells which are not green in color, right? So they cannot carry out the photosynthesis. They need food for what? Oxidization. Hence, food has to be translocated. That means they have to be, shared or transferred to all the non-green plants of the plant. So one thing is clear, that animals, they are heterotrophic. What do you mean by heterotrophic? That means they obtain their food from plants, right? Either directly or indirectly. Indirectly, in sense, we eat upon other animals or other organisms for our food. So obviously, those are like we are carnivores eating herbivores. So that means carnivores are getting their energy through herbivore by eating herbivores, right? So how did herbivores got their energy? Through eating the plants. So that means indirectly we are depending on plants. So herbivores, like directly they depend on plants, where carnivores they depend on indirectly on plants, and even fungi which are dependent on dead and decay matter, they're called as saprophytes. So in general, all the living organisms, we directly or indirectly, we actually depend on plants for our food or energy, whatever it is. So we deal with the cellular respiration, or a mechanism of what? Breaking down of the food materials within the cell to release a kind of energy, and then we are going to trap those energy for the synthesis of what? ATP. Okay, for the synthesis of ATP. So photosynthesis, of course, which takes place within the chloroplast, right? So in eukaryotes, where the breakdown of the complex molecules that yield the energy that takes place in the cytoplasm as well as in the mitochondria, if I'm subjecting it with eukaryotes. So the breaking of that bond, that is carbon-carbon bond, the CC bond, which is present in the complex compounds, through what kind of thing that is called as oxidization within the cell, leading to a release of certain amount of energy, which is actually we call it as the respiration. So the compound that are oxidized during the process, okay, of this energy process and all is actually called as respiratory substance. Please note down this point. And usually, what happens, the carbohydrates are oxidized to release energy, but like proteins, fats, and even organic acids can be used as the respiratory substances in some of the plants under certain condition. So, during oxidization within a cell, what happens? The energy contained in the respiratory system, okay, that the respiratory substances is not released free into the cell. That means directly it will be not released into the cell or through a single step. So what happens now? There a series of slow stepwise reaction takes place, and they have been controlled by certain enzymes, and then it is trapped as what? Chemical energy. Yeah. So hence it is very important to understand that the energy released by the oxidization of the respiration is not, or they can be used directly, is not, or rather cannot be used directly, but it used to, instead of that, it will be used to synthesize what? ATP, which is broken down whenever energy needs to be utilized. So hence what happens, the ATP acts as an energy currency of the cell. So this energy trapped in the ATP is utilized in various energy required process of an organisms, and carbon skeleton produced during the respiration is used as what? Uh, it's something for the biosynthesis of other molecules in the cell. Okay. So during the process of the respiration, oxygen is being utilized and the carbon dioxide is also being utilized. Water, energy are released as a product. In general, what happens during the process of respiration? What happens? Oxygen is utilized and carbon dioxide, water, and energy are being released as a product. So the conversion requires oxygen, but some cells leave where oxygen may or may not be available also. So here are some sufficient reasons to believe that the first cell on this planet lived in the atmosphere that lacked oxygen. Okay, that means some of the cells they did not depends on oxygen for their ATP synthesis or energy. Even among present day living organisms, we know of several that actually adopt to anaerobic condition, right? So anaerobic in sense the absence of oxygen, they show their activities and all. Some of these organisms are facultative anaerobes, while the other are required for anaerobic condition in the obligate. So in any cases, all living organisms, they retain the energy, a kind of enzymatic mechanisms to particularly oxidize the glucose without the help of the oxygen. This breakdown or breakdown of the glucose to pyruvic acid is actually called as glycolysis. Very important. I'll just let you know like what it is. Okay. So then what exactly the glycolysis and the steps which comes under the glycolysis? Let us see. The term glycolysis has originated from the Greek word that is glycose for the sugar, then and lysis is nothing but splitting. Glyco is nothing but sugar, right? And lysis is nothing but splitting. So in anaerobic organisms, what happens? It is the only process in respiration. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell and is present in all living organisms. In this process, the glucose undergoes partial oxidization to form two molecules of pyruvic acid. Whereas in plants, what happens? This glucose, it is delivered from the sucrose, which is the end product of the photosynthesis or for storage of the carbohydrates. So one thing is clear that the sucrose is converted into the glucose and fructose by an enzymatic, which is called as an enzymes invertase, and these two monosaccharides readily enters the glycolytic pathways. We will just know it in detail. Okay. So what happens is when I'm talking about the ATP, it is utilized at two steps. One is you're seeing here the glucose, right? So conversion of the glucose into glucose 6 phosphate. So this glucose has got converted into glucose 6 phosphate. So this is first step. And the second step, what happens? This glucose 6 phosphate, right? The conversion of the, so that gets converted into now fructose 6 phosphate. And now this fructose 6 phosphates that gets converted to what happens? Fructose 1 comma 6 bisphosphate. Okay, so this got converted into fructose 1 comma 6 bisphosphate. Then what happens? The fructose 1 comma 6 bisphosphate, it gets split into two types. One is it gets splitted into dihydroxyacetone phosphate is one thing, and another one thing is 3 phosphoglyceraldehyde. Okay, PGAL. So these are the two things that it gets split into. And we find that there is only one step where this NADH, and H plus is formed. Only in one step you can see this formation. Okay, from where? NAD plus. So this is where you are going to see. You are going to see here in this step, that is 3 phosphoglyceraldehyde, PGAL. Okay, PGAL, or you can also call this as like this glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate. Anything is fine. 3 phosphate glyceraldehyde or glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate. Anything is fine. So from fructose 1 comma 6 bisphosphate, you will get PGAL or DHAP, and you are going to observe only in one step where you are going to say the conversion of that means you'll see a formation of NADH plus H plus ions. Okay, that is in this one. After that, what happens after this step? Okay, so two redox equivalents are removed. Okay, then in the form of two hydrogen atom, from where? From this one, that is PGAL. Okay, and transferred to the molecules of NADH. Then what happens? This PGAL, that is 3 glyceraldehyde phosphate or glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, which is there, right? So that what happens is oxidize and with organic phosphate to give converted into BPGA, that is nothing but this one 1 comma 3 bisphosphoglycerate. Okay, so the conversion of this thing, that is BPGA2, then after the formation of 1 comma 3 bisphosphoglycerate, now it has to get converted into what? So yeah, 1 comma 3 bisphosphoglycerate is nothing but PPGA. So it has to get converted into what? PGA, that is nothing but the 3 phosphoglyceric acid, PGA. Okay, 3 phosphoglyceric acid is also an energy yield process. This energy is trapped by the formation of the ATP. Now we are going to see the formation of ATP. Another ATP will be synthesized during the conversion of PEP to pyruvic acid. At the end, what you are going to see here is the pyruvic acid formation. How we are going to see the pyruvic formation is ATP synthesized where? During the conversion of PEP. PEP is nothing but phosphophenol pyruvate. Phosphoenol pyruvate. Okay, that is nothing but PEP. After the conversion, like you have seen this thing, right? So after that, you are going to see the pyruvic acid. Okay. So now what you will be seeing is the pyruvic acid at the end is actually a key product of what? uh, Glycolysis. So there are three major ways in which different cells handle pyruvic acid produced by the glycolysis. So there are lactic acid fermentation, alcoholic fermentation method, and aerobic respiration. Fermentation takes place under aerobic condition and in many prokaryotes and unicellular eukaryotes. For the complete oxidation of the glucose to carbon dioxide and the water, however, organisms adopt a Krebs cycle, which is also called as what? Aerobic respiration, which requires carbon dioxide. So I was talking about fermentation, right? So in fermentation, say like if we take yeast, the incomplete oxidation of the glucose is achieved under aerobic condition by set-off reaction where the pyruvic acid, it gets converted to the carbon dioxide and ethanol. That is one point. Okay, ethanol and carbon dioxide. The enzymes, the pyruvic acid decarboxylase and alcohol dehydrogenase catalyze this reaction. Okay. Then other organisms like some bacteria produce lactic acid that you are seeing here from the pyruvic acid. Okay. Then in animal cells also, like if you see muscles during exercise when oxygen is indicated for cellular respiration, pyruvic acid is reduced to lactic acid by lactate dehydrogenase. Then the reducing agent is, what will be the reducing agent? So this will be the reducing agent, that is NADH plus H plus ion. Okay. So which is reoxidized to NAD plus in both the process. Okay. That is, here you are seeing NADH plus H plus ions, you are seeing it is that is the reducing agent. And again you are seeing here, like after the process, once it is coming back, that is, which is reoxidization to the NAD plus in both the process. Then in both the lactic acid and alcohol fermentation, not much energy is released. Less than 7% of energy in glucose is released, and not all of it is trapped as a higher energy bond of ATP. So also the process is not they are actually hazardous. Either acidic or alcohol is produced. Any two is out of any one from two, like either acidic, what do you say that acid is produced or alcohol has to be produced during the fermentation process. So yeast poisons themselves to death when the concentration of the alcohol reaches about 30%. Now, so yeah, what then is the process by which the organisms can carry out the complete oxidation of the glucose and extract the energy stored to synthesize a large amount of ATP molecules needed for the cellular what do you say that metabolism is a big question mark. So see, in eukaryotes there are these like there are certain steps that takes place within the mitochondria, and they required what? Oxygen. So aerobic respiration is a process that leads to the completed oxidation of the organic substance in the presence of oxygen and releases the carbon dioxide, water, and large amount of energy which is present in the substrate. This type of respiration is very most common in the higher organisms. So coming to the aerobic respiration, for aerobic respiration, it takes place within the mitochondria, and the final product will be the glycolysis. Pyruvic is then the pyruvic has been transported, okay, from the cytoplasm into the mitochondria. So if you have, this is a mitochondria and this is a cytoplasm. So from the cytoplasm, it has been transferred to the mitochondria. Then the crucial events in the aerobic respirations are, what are the very important crucial events? The complete oxidation of the pyruvic or pyruvate by the stepwise removal of the hydrogen atom, leaving three molecules of the carbon dioxide, and the passing of the electrons removed as part of the hydrogen atom to what is that molecular oxygen with simultaneous synthesis of the ATP. So one thing that is very interesting to note is that the first process takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. So this is the matrix of the mitochondria. It takes place. While the second process, that is this process, right? It is located in the inner membrane of the cytoplasm. It happens within the cytoplasm, right? So pyruvate, which is formed by the, what do you say that glycolative catabolism of the carbohydrates in the cytosol, right? After it enters the mitochondrial matrix, it undergoes the oxidative decarboxylation by the uh, complete set of reaction catalyzed by the pyruvic dehydrogenase. And the reactions catalyzed by the pyruvic dehydrogenase requires the uh, participation of several coenzymes, including NAD plus and coenzymes A. So one is what happens here is this is the reaction which you are going to absorb. So during this process, two molecules of NADH are produced from the metabolism of two molecules of the pyruvic acid. Okay. So that is produced from one glucose molecule during the glycolysis. Then acetyl CoA, then it actually enters into the cyclic path. Then you will see the tricarboxylic acid cycle, more commonly, which is actually called as Krebs cycle, after the scientist Hans Krebs, who first elucidated this entire process. So here it is all about the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle, or it is also called as the TCA cycle, okay, or the citric acid cycle, is a series of enzymes where you're going to see the catalyzed reaction occurs in the mitochondrial matrix. Why mitochondria? Because that is the powerhouse, right, of the cell. Yeah. So mitochondrial matrix where the acetyl acetyl CoA, that is CoA, is oxidized to form the carbon dioxide, and coenzymes are reduced, which generates the ATP in the electron transport chain. So it is a series of 8-step process will happens in the Krebs cycle, where the acetyl group of acetyl CoA is oxidized to form the two molecules of the carbon dioxide, and in the presence, one ATP is produced. Reduced high energy compound NADH and FADH2 are also produced. See, we will go by step now. So yeah, first step, what you're going to see is the first step is the condensation of the acetyl CoA with 4 carbon compound. Okay, with the 4 carbon compound auxiliates to form 6C citrate. So this is what you're seeing here, 6C citrate citrate. And here the coenzyme A is released. The reaction is catalyzed by the citrate synthesis. Okay, this is one thing. Next, in step 2, what happens? The citric acid or citrate is converted to its isomer, that is isocitrate. Then what happens? Acid, uh, the enzyme that you are seeing here is the acinotase catalyzes this reaction. Okay. Then in the step 3, what happens is the isocitrate undergoes this thing that is called as dehydrogenation and decarboxylation to form the 5C, that is, you are seeing this thing, right? Alpha ketoglutarate. So from citric acid to alpha ketoglutarate. So where CO2 has been released and the molecule what happens after that? A molecular form of the CO2 that you are seeing here is actually released. Right? Then the isocitrate. This isocitrate, which was that is going to dehydrogenase catalase the reaction. It is an NAD plus dependent enzyme where NAD plus is converted to what? NADH. In step 4, what happens? This alpha ketoglutaric acid undergoes oxidative decarboxylation to form succinic acid. Okay, 4C, a compound. 4C is a actual compound. This reaction is catalyzed by what? Alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase enzyme complex. So this is the reaction is catalyzed by the alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase enzyme complex. So one molecule of the CO2 is released and NAD plus is converted to NADH. So in fifth, what happened? This succinic acid is there, right? That is COA forms succinate. So that is going to form what? Succinate. The enzyme succinyl CoA synthesise catalase this the entire reaction. This is coupled with the substrate level phosphorylation of the GDP to get what? GTP. So what is this GTP? It transfers its phosphate to ADP forming the ATP. Okay. Then this succinate is oxidized by the enzyme succinoic dehydrogenase to fumarate. In the process, what happens? The FAD is converted to FADH2. And in the seventh step, this fumarate gets converted to malate by the addition of the H2O. The enzyme catalyzing this reaction is fumarase. And in the last step, what happens? The malate or malic acid, okay, is dehydrogenated to form the oxaloacetate, which combines with another molecule, okay, or oxalic acid, which combines with another molecule of acetyl CoA and starts the new cycle. Hydrogen is removed, gets transferred to NAD plus, forming NADH and malate, or what do you say that? Yeah, malic. Okay. Malate dehydrogenase catalase. So that thing, it catalyzes the reaction. So this is all about what? The Krebs cycle or the citric cycle or whatever you want to call it as. Okay. So it's called TCA cycle or Krebs cycle or the citric cycle. So yeah, this is all about how the entire thing happens during the respiration. So it's actually a kind of very complicated unit. The only thing that you need to remember are steps here.